Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1075, March the 17th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Tuesday. Yes, it is. And of course, that means there'll be a lot of votes cast today. And that should pretty much be the final nail in the coffin for Commie Bernie. But I expect he will probably stick around. We'll just have to see. We'll get back to that later. So let's go ahead and get to the news of the day. So yesterday it was reported in the Gateway Pundit that the government has dropped their case against Concord Management. Yes, that's right, the Russian troll farm. They have dropped their case against Concord Management. They say to avoid, well, actually, this is not what they say. This is what I say. They have dropped their case against Concord Management to avoid looking like fools in a trial. But the government says that they can't move forward because it would require releasing classified information that the Russian government could use against the U.S. So what's going on here? Well, as we all know, from the very beginning, this was a publicity stunt. Uncle Bob the Executioner and the Hillary donor posse never believed that the Russian troll farm, which is Concord Management, would even show up to a hearing. But Concord Management did get some really top-notch lawyers in New York, one of the top law firms in New York, and they did show up to answer the charges. And this thing has been going on for now close to 2 years. And of course, these lawyers have done a fantastic job, and they've been going through the exact same thing that Sidney Powell has been going through in the Flynn case, where she is saying, hey, this is the evidence that the government has that they need to produce so that we can represent our client. This is important information to the case. And of course, the DOJ, on behalf of the Mueller investigation, because obviously the Mueller investigation is over, but those crack lawyers are still finishing up these cases. So this was never supposed to happen. Mueller didn't think that these people would ever show up, but they did. And so after all this time, requesting all these documents, getting closer and closer to exonerating themselves, the government has finally had to pull something out of their butt, and this is what it is. They're basically telling the judge, well, I think we're going to have to pull back and discontinue this case, let this case go, because what they're requesting and what the court would like us to provide is classified information, and if this information gets back to the Russian government, and we believe it will, it could be used against us as a weapon. So this is the excuse that they're giving, because they just can't admit that the evidence, if they were to provide it, would clear Concord Management and demonstrate what we've seen in all these other cases brought by Uncle Bob the Executioner and the Hillary donor posse, which is that they were all cooked up. They were all cooked up. Just as we see in the Michael Flynn case, that case never should have been brought. Just as we learned from the numerous documents that have come out regarding the Papadopoulos case, where they never should have charged him. They didn't give the court the exculpatory information, where Papadopoulos himself said, hey, I would never do that. That would be treason. I would never participate in something like that. None of this information given to the courts. So the Papadopoulos case never should have went forward. The FISA warrant on Carter Page should never have been granted. They knew he wasn't not only did they know that he wasn't a Russian asset, but they also knew that he had been working for the U.S. government as an asset, both the CIA and the FBI. We're also going to find in the Manafort case, which we already know pretty much most of that as well, is that that case never should have been brought against Manafort. The charges that they went after had previously been looked at by the DOJ almost a decade earlier, and they decided not to move forward. But instead, in order to get the justification to investigate Manafort, they used the Black Ledger, which they knew at the time was bullshit. So again, they used information that they knew was false to justify launching these investigations because they were desperate. And so this publicity stunt, just like all the other publicity stunts, has failed. It has backfired. And I guess you could say in the case of Uncle Bob the Executioner versus the Russian trolls, it is the Russian trolls 1, Mueller nothing. So there you go. Just another of the Mueller cases blowing up. And I expect if you were to dig into all the Mueller cases, as we are seeing, they will all be blown up. So certainly this is something that Durham already knows all this. Okay, he's way ahead of all this. So this will all be taken into consideration and probably provides even more evidence for the argument that Uncle Bob the executioner and the Hillary donor posse should be put into the same group of the deep state coup plotters. They were in fact a big part of the deep state coup, and I continue to believe that the insurance policy was really the Mueller investigation. I know other people have different ideas on that. It really doesn't matter, but that's what I think anyway. So here we have Uncle Bob the executioner and the Hillary donor posse getting punked again in court, which just goes to show if you challenge these people, you beat them. And, unfortunately, in the case of Michael Flynn, he went far too long playing the game. Papadopoulos probably should have challenged things, but maybe he was looking at such a short amount of time, and with the amount of money it would have cost him for legal defense, he probably made the right decision. Of course, they could never move forward on Carter Page because they never had anything, and besides, Carter Page was never the target. They just needed to get the FISA on him so that they could use the two-hop rule to listen in on the Trump campaign. And any attempts to move forward on him would have failed as well. So here we can see just another case where the Uncle Bob the executioner and the Mueller team is looking very, very bad. And the farther we go down this road, the more information that comes out, the more that we can see exactly how bad this whole Mueller investigation was. And none of it should have happened, and it wouldn't have happened if not for Rodenstein. Rodenstein had to have access to all this information. I find it very difficult to believe that if put in front of a grand jury, put in front of any jury, or a committee or anything else, that Rodenstein can sit there with a straight face and say, yeah, I signed off on investigating the president during a presidential or a presidential candidate, and then later the president. Well, actually, he wasn't around during the presidential campaign, so it would be just when after Trump was inaugurated. But Rodenstein certainly can't sit there and say that he can't sit there and justify appointing Uncle Bob the executioner. He's got one or two choices. He can say either, yeah, I admit I'm totally guilty, I'm totally corrupt, I was part of the deep state coup, or he can say, no, I didn't know about any of it because I didn't look into any of it. I just signed off on everything without actually looking into any of it, because that's what he would have to do. Because if Rodenstein had dug into anything, he would have found out that, as we have learned already, that the entire dossier had been debunked in January. Flynn had been debunked in January. The exculpatory information on Papadopoulos was certainly there for Rodenstein to see. He just chose not to look at it, or he looked at it and he's part of the coup. There's no way at all that Rodenstein can justify, either way he goes, cannot justify what he did. Rodenstein should be at the top of the heap of people getting cuffed and taken away, right along with the whole Mueller team, the top tier of the FBI, the DOJ, everyone who was involved in this coup. Durham certainly has to know all this, and it appears also that we're hearing that because of the coronavirus situation, that's likely going to delay Durham's investigation, which is not. None of us are happy to hear that, because it seems like it's been going on for a long time already, when in actuality, it really hasn't been going on all that long. I think he first got into it in May, but he really didn't start pursuing it as a criminal investigation until late in the fall. So it hasn't been going on as long as it seems. It's just that the whole thing has been going on for a long time. So I'm willing to wait for Durham to complete his investigation just as long as he comes to the right conclusion at the end of it. What he better not do is take us on this long journey and at the end drop us off at the end and say, well, didn't find anything. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I know there's a lot of people who do, and that's fine. I mean, we're all just taking a guess here. And I continue to believe that Trump's simply not going to let these people get away with it. And I think there's quite a few members of Congress that would seriously object and have a fit if that's the conclusion Durham reached. And I also find it hard to believe that Durham would have gone this far in this investigation if he had no intention of charging people, because he's had enough time now to figure out whether or not there was foul play involved. By now, he certainly would know that. And the fact that he's continuing tells me that there's likely, more than likely, going to be charges against the deep state players. How many, what type of charges, how he's going to approach it, I don't know. But I continue to believe that this thing is going to end up with quite a few deep staters being charged with some serious crimes and going to jail. So that's my belief at this point. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the debate last night. Of course, it was a 2-hour debate. I didn't watch the whole debate, but I've certainly read up on it, watched some videos, all the highlights and things. And basically what you had was these two guys out there trying to out-woke each other. And while it may have allowed Biden to survive the night, it's ultimately going to come back and bite him in the ass in the general election, because he had to take crazy positions on a multitude of issues. Probably the most damaging one being when they got into talking about immigration policy. Really hard to believe that they're sitting there in the middle of this virus thing that's breaking out, and they're both talking about how they would not arrest anybody in the country unless they committed a felony, would have open borders. Bernie wants to get rid of ICE. I mean, it's just amazing, watching that exchange, like they're completely oblivious to what's going on around them, when everyone around the world right now is basically closing their borders and securing their borders and keeping people out and keeping people in a lot of respects. So that was a pretty surreal thing to watch. This clip I watched, about a 5-minute clip of them debating that issue, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Now, I don't know what the ratings were, how many people were watching, I don't know, but ultimately, while it may not look like it hurt Biden that much, it probably helped him last night in the debate. Ultimately, in the general election, it's going to be the nail, one of the many nails in his coffin, because I mean those clips are there, and I'm sure the Republican National Committee has got every one of those clips from Biden last night, and they're gonna kill him in the general. So my overall take on it was that, as I said, Bernie really needed to have a big night. He needed to take out Biden. He needed to go for the jugular. Now, it was probably the most aggressive I have seen Bernie, but not aggressive enough. And he never hit Biden on his corruption. He did go after him on his record on quite a few different things, but he never hit him on the corruption. And I just think he really needed to go for the jugular, and he just didn't do it. Now, it's going to be interesting because, of course, there's 6 major states voting today. And as we know, the coronavirus seems to be targeting mostly people over 80, elderly people. Well, that's Biden's crowd. So this could help Bernie, assuming young people come out to vote, which I'm not so sure they will. They haven't at this point. But if Bernie were to get a high turnout from young voters, he could do pretty well, because Biden's gets the older voters, and I think a lot of them are going to sit this one out. So I don't think it's going to be enough to matter. I think all these states that we're talking about, the 6 states we're talking about, they're all states where Biden has such a big lead. I don't think it's possible for Bernie to catch him or beat him in any of these states. But what it could do is allow Bernie to do well enough that he eclipses that 15% mark, so that he collects enough delegates to deprive Biden of the really big victory he could have had, and the type of victory that could have blown Sanders completely out of the competition, and he probably would have quit. But if Bernie can do well enough, I think he'll stay in the fight if he can pick up enough delegates to keep it within 150 or so delegates. I think if Biden has a really big day and ends up winning, and Bernie doesn't collect near the delegates he needs to even stay close or competitive, I think that will be over. But I don't think it matters. I mean, I don't see from this point forward how Bernie catches Biden. I don't know if there'll be any more debates, but Biden didn't do, relatively speaking, he didn't do bad. He's still very, very weak, but he didn't he made gaffes, but so did Bernie. They both made gaffes. They both made mistakes, but there was no meltdown. There was no super senior moment where Biden just lost his mind or anything. And that's what really Bernie needed. He needed a big meltdown moment, and he didn't get it, and he didn't force the error. So anyway, I think Biden survived the night. I think neither of them look good. And I think that it's still going to come down to who's the least crazy of the two. And we see this recent poll that came out, a national poll came out, of 63% of people in the country. This is a Reuters poll. 63% of the people polled in this national poll do not want socialism. And I think that this is being reflected in these primaries. But what Bernie did succeed at last night is he succeeded at forcing Biden to go really, really hard left on quite a few positions that I think are ultimately going to be coffin nails for him in the general election. Because, as I said, all these clips now in possession of the Republican National Committee, and you're going to see these clips over and over again. Trump's going to have these talking points at every debate. He's going to be tweeting about it constantly. Biden is going to own these comments that he made last night, and he's not going to be able to escape them because they're not things he said 5 years ago or 20 years ago. These are things he said recently in a debate, and he's going to own them, and he's not going to be able to shake them off. And Trump is just going to bury him in this stuff. So basically, we had Biden at one point when they were talking about abortion, essentially saying he would support abortion in pretty much every possible form. I mean, he showed no interest in showing any limits on abortion whatsoever. So we can assume that Biden is for post-birth abortion. If you listen to what he said last night, he doesn't seem to have any limits whatsoever on how far he would go in abortion. Now, what's strange about this is at the very time he's making this statement at the debate last night, he's running ads in quite a few states where he's talking about what a strict, long, I guess he's talking about what a good Catholic he is, and his long-held beliefs in the Catholic Church, and how strictly he follows the teachings of the Catholic Church, while at the same time he's on a debate stage talking about pretty much unlimited abortions, and including taxpayer-funded abortions. This issue alone is going to be devastating. But he also says, we're talking about Biden now, is that the first 100 days in office, he would not have any deportations. Oh my goodness gracious. So what are you going to do with all those people? Plus, if you say, I'm not going to deport anybody for 100 days, then what you're saying to all these millions and millions of migrants and illegals and everything else is you've got 100 days to crash our border and nothing will happen to you. He would create so much panic at the border. Border Patrol will be overrun. You think we've seen migrant caravans now? Just wait till Biden says, okay, he gets elected president, you got a 100-day moratorium. Anybody who wants to come across the border for the next 100 days, you're good to go. We're going to have there will be hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of migrants flowing up from South America and other places in the world, just crossing the border. They would overrun the Border Patrol. They would end up flowing into. It would just be a disaster, as you can imagine. And that alone is just another mega nail in the coffin. And this is all happening right in the middle of this coronavirus outbreak where everybody is closing the borders. Even Mexico is now wanting to close the borders with the U.S. They don't want infected U.S. people coming into Mexico. Yet here's Biden saying the first 100 days of his administration, no deportations, and following that, you would only get deported if you committed a new felony while in the country. So anything you did before, you might have been here 9 times before and deported 5 or 6 times for felonies. You might have felonies in your past. None of that matters. And Biden doesn't consider DUI a felony. He doesn't consider just about anything. Nothing's a felony for these illegals, according to Biden. So what his definition of a felony would be, we don't even really know. So again, this is a devastatingly stupid position to take right in the middle of a coronavirus. I mean, it's just hard to believe that he made these statements. Then he goes and says there'll be no more drilling if he's president, no more fracking, and no more coal plants will be built. Well, based on that statement right there, I mean, that's the very statement that the Rotten Reverend Clinton made that cost her the Midwest, the upper Midwest. It's the very statement that she made that allowed Trump to flip 3 blue states red. And this will guarantee that those blue states that Trump flipped red will stay dark red, deep red, and will never go back to being blue. And not only that, he probably will help Trump flip 2 or 3 more blue states into red. Because when you say no more drilling, no more fracking, no more coal plants, again, here we are right in the middle of this coronavirus. the big lesson, the big takeaway from all this, when we get beyond this, is going to be we need to end our dependence on certain things from foreign governments. Now, we've already become energy independent. We're now a net exporter. And the lesson that's going to be learned from all this will be the exact thing that Biden is prescribing here. This is going to come back and bite him big in the ass. This will guarantee that Biden loses Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, Missouri, Michigan, Pennsylvania, possibly Minnesota, likely Wisconsin. I mean, he literally just in that one thing probably lost 5 or 6, 7 crucial states that he would need to win. So another nail in the coffin of Joe Biden. And then he says that the way that we're going to deal with all this is that he's going to introduce high-speed rail everywhere in the damn country where we see the disaster out in California with this whole idea of high-speed rail. Everyone has seen what a disaster it is, and no one's going to buy into this. No one's going to buy high-speed rail. Is not going to solve anything. If anything, people are now enjoying these very low gas prices, and they know that they know that high-speed rail is not the answer. We haven't seen a single one of these high-speed rail projects ever come to fruition. The one in California is a disaster. I mean, it is so many billions and billions of dollars behind. They're wanting to actually completely restart the whole program and literally just say, okay, we just lost $86 billion. Let's just forget about the $86 billion. Let's just start over and do a new high-speed rail project. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up, folks. These are things that are just killers, absolute killers. Both Warren and Sanders said that they would have a female vice president, and so now they've put themselves in that box. So who do they have to choose from? Warren, Klobuchar, maybe the Rotten Reverend, but I don't think the Rotten Reverend will take the job. I don't think she'll serve as VP under Biden. I really don't. I don't think Michelle Obama has an interest in the job whatsoever. So I think that leaves you pretty much with Warren or Klobuchar. Or maybe they'll go for Kamala Harris, but she's a disaster. And with Biden's mental condition, his health issues, I think most people are going to pay pretty close attention to the VP and think, well, if Biden wins, he doesn't look like his mind is going to last another year. We're probably going to end up with whoever his VP is. And people are going to be looking really hard at Klobuchar, Warren, and legs in the air Harris. And I don't think many people are going to feel very good about that. So that's just another devastating blow, another huge mistake. Again, these are all things that Biden was doing last night, was trying to look like he was more woke than Bernie. He's trying to play to the Bernie supporters, but they're not going to vote for him, okay? It's not going to happen. No matter what he says. He could totally endorse Bernie's entire plan, and he still wouldn't get the Bernie vote. Because they don't like him, they don't trust him. He's part of the establishment, and everybody knows it. Biden cannot undo, 40 years of his past. It is what it is. And also, another thing is we literally had Biden last night coming out now talking like he's a hawk on China, completely flipping his position from just 2 months ago when he was talking about, China, we ain't worried about China, China's nothing to worry about, they're our friends, blah, 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 blah. So now he's done a complete 180 flip-flop. The problem is there's so much other video and recent video of Biden being completely opposite, that flipping to being a hawk on China at the last minute is not going to pan out. It's not going to work. In fact, it's only going to make him look like he's nuts, because you're going to have him literally making totally contradictory statements within a 6-month time frame about China. And again, the video's there, and the Republicans got it all. And Trump will just beat him to death on the China issue. Plus, it's going to be hard for him to come out and be opposed to China, especially when we have all these dealings of Hunter Biden with China and Joe Biden with China. He can't go back and erase this past history. It's there, and everybody knows about it. And Trump will make sure that people remember it every single day via Twitter. I did think it was one moment there during the debate where that was really unfair toward Bernie. And at one point, Dana Bash asked Bernie about his age and about the fact that he just had a heart attack, and about the coronavirus attacks older people. She directed that question to to Bernie, but when she went back and directed the question to Biden, she didn't bring up the fact that he's literally going senile right in front of our eyes. She didn't bring up any of his gaffes or health problems or other things that he's had going on in his past, and the fact that he's only 1 year younger than Bernie. So clearly, Dana Bash and CNN were trying to give Biden a break. But, I mean, the average person watching the debate had to think, wait a minute. I mean, they're both 178, 177. And actually, Bernie looks like he's in better health than Biden. And we all know that Biden, it's obvious that he's got actual issues. You can see them. Whereas Bernie, Bernie appears to be fairly healthy. Yeah, he had a heart attack, but he appears to be doing okay. So I think that was a major attempted hit job on Bernie by CNN, but I don't think it flew. I think it probably pissed off a lot of Bernie supporters, but even people who are not Bernie supporters like myself, just watching it and watching how that little exchange took place, it was very obvious what the intention was by Dana Bash and CNN. It wasn't a fair question, really, because she didn't say anything about Biden's health issues. She only basically said, what are you doing basically to protect yourself against coronavirus? Here they are calling for open borders, calling for bringing more and more and more millions of people into the country, and she's wanting to know what they're doing about coronavirus. Oh, I'm not touching my face, and our podiums are 40 feet apart, and I didn't shake hands, and I mean, what a mess! What an absolute mess! When we get through this thing, and I hope we will sooner than later, there's going to be a lot of good that's going to come out of this. There's going to be a lot of good. It's hard to see it now, but there is going to be a lot of good to come out of this. And one of the best things, I think, on a global scale, is that we are going to see globalism take a huge hit, because globalism is a big, big problem all over the world right now with trying to deal with coronavirus. The things that globalism has brought to us are now showing up as being very detrimental to getting a handle on this problem. Globalism is taking a beating right now, and when all this is gone, that's what people are going to look back on and reflect on, and they're going to say, wow, globalism isn't such a good idea after all, is it? Nor is open borders. We also have this story, of course, last night, the reason that Biden was, or I should say Sunday night, the reason that Biden was moving so far to the left is that he's obviously being told you need to bring in Bernie supporters. And so in an attempt to be more woke than Bernie, he has moved so far left that he's unelectable in a general. But at the same time, we have these never Biden sort of things going out there, and now we are seeing a lot of what's being described as a mass exodus from the Democratic Party. A lot of Bernie supporters saying that there will be a mass exodus from the Democratic Party if Biden is the nominee and not Bernie. So I think that they're going to follow through on that. I totally believe them. Totally believe them. So again, for all that Biden did last night, I think he got bad advice. I don't think he needed to go anywhere near that far left to win the debate. But his advisors obviously told him to do that. It's going to kill him in the general election. And if the point was to try to gather up the Bernie supporters to get them to vote for him, it's not going to happen. And here we can see with Bernie supporters talking about having a mass exodus. Again, it was a very bad strategy for Biden. Right now, he needs to be focusing on the general. I mean, Bernie is not going to catch him in delegates, no matter what Biden said last night. The only thing that could have hurt Biden is if he collapsed on stage or literally lost his mind. But as long as he stayed relatively upright and didn't start, going into total mumbo jumbo, he's still going to have the big victory today. Delegate-wise, he's going to be so far ahead, Bernie simply won't have the opportunity. All they would need to do is hide Biden. But they should have been shifting more toward the general on message, but they didn't. They had him go totally hard left. And I think that's going to be nails in the coffin for Biden. He's got to defend all the things we just talked about, and Trump's not going to let him forget any of them, or any of us. Okay, so the last few minutes here are just my thoughts on the coronavirus at this point. Obviously, we're all in this thing together, my friends. It sucks. My biggest concern right now uh, with the coronavirus is I'm mostly concerned with my coworkers. A lot of my coworkers that are, live paycheck to paycheck. Fortunately, for the owners, for the managers, and people like us, we're not in that situation. We can, we can take the financial hit. We're not going to be really affected by it per se. But I'm concerned mostly for my coworkers and small businesses across the country and other people across the country who we know there's a significant number of people in this country that literally live day by day, day to day, paycheck to paycheck, week by week. They cannot take any hit whatsoever. And we have a lot of small businesses employ most of the people in the country. They, a lot of times, live month by month. So I think the most important thing to focus on is that. And I think that Congress better get their shit together in the next couple of days. They better get a bill out of the Senate that the president can sign that really focuses big time on the economic issue. I think the economic issue may be even more important than the health issue. I mean, the health issue we can deal with. The various things that we're all doing to try to keep from the virus spreading and that type of thing. Those are all pretty much the ABCs of keep it simple and let's keep this thing from spreading. Let's just all work together to make sure we're doing the best we can and we'll get through this. But the economic thing is the thing that worries me the most, and I do fear that a lot of the people who live in that sort of paycheck to paycheck and small businesses that literally go month by month, those are the people, if I'm Congress, those are the people you better be focused on financially taking care of these people. You better make sure that there's something that they do in Congress, and it needs to happen quickly, that focuses on taking care of these people for a change. Because normally they focus on taking care of Wall Street and the banks, and I understand that. But you don't want banks collapsing. But at the same time, this particular virus, the most damage it could do is what it could do to so many individual Americans and small businesses on the economic side. That's where I would be putting a lot of my emphasis, and hopefully they'll get something done here in the Congress very soon, get the president a bill he can sign that takes care of that problem. Otherwise, they're all going to pay a major price, and it's not something we want to see happen in this country. I mean, it could get really out of hand, is what I'm saying. We can't have, the lower third, 30% of our population destitute, no money, no food. I mean, things can get, pretty bad. So I think that that's the most critical thing to look at right now. We also heard that there is going to be a vaccine that's going to be delivered for trial testing, but keep in mind, even if it passed the test, it won't be ready for mass rollout. At the soonest would probably be close to a year. So I don't know that that's a big thing to deal with right now, but it's something that's in the news headlines. We're looking now, saying it could be somewhere in midsummer before things start to tail off, but it could go longer. I'm hoping that's not the case, because like 3 days of this and I'm already sick of it. I think that we are probably going to have a recession, but I do believe that once this is over, the economy will bounce back and boom in a huge way. But I do believe that we are going to see recession-type numbers coming in for this quarter and probably the second quarter of the year, probably leading into the third quarter. But as soon as we get past this, I think there'll be a huge economic recovery. There are a lot of businesses, including the airlines, that likely could go bankrupt. The airlines have gone bankrupt before. There's probably going to be a lot of businesses that are going to go bankrupt, and hopefully they'll be able to get them through these bankruptcies and get them back on their feet quickly. I think that's an important thing to do. I think the most extraordinary, stupid thing I've heard in the last 24 hours is the president of the EU suggesting that they should keep the borders open between all those EU countries. This is so insane that even Angela Merkel is even saying, "You're nuts. You're nuts." Even Merkel is saying, "Hell no, we're shutting the borders completely." So Germany is the hardcore right now, shutting their borders. All over Europe they're doing this, while the president of the EU, trying to save her globalist wet dream, is encouraging them not to. That is insanity. There you go. The globalists know this is their last gasp. If anything comes out of this that is good, it will be the end of globalism. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you. Bye.